For me, the Goodwood Festival of Speed highlight has to be this 1967 USAC Vollstedt-Ford, owned by Mike McKinney. Jim Clark raced this car at Riverside in a one-off appearance at the end of that season. Although the team and the car were very new to him, Jim led the race before he, guess what, missed a gear and blew the engine. Legend has it, the $5,000 fee he was being paid to race was Jimmy then gave it back to the team because he was so upset that he'd blown up the engine. But it was interesting to hear Mike say that the gear shift has such a long throw that it was no surprise at all that he did miss a gear, one gear in the entire race. Mike has restored the car to meticulous but non-Concord detail, which I love because the numbers, for example, on each side of the car are slightly different in their pinstriping, just as they were at Riverside in 1967, but as you wouldn't have them if you're putting the car on parade. The cockpit and the steering wheel are totally original, and the car overall has been rebuilt exactly to Riverside race spec. In that race, interestingly, on Sunday morning, all the drivers were told to put their names on their helmets, so it looks a bit odd seeing Clark or Gurney on the side of the helmets. They never did that, in my experience, at any other race at that time. Mike even went to the trouble of recreating Firestone logos and striping on what are actually Goodyear tyres, the tyres on which it now runs. This in itself is a major feat, of course. The Vollstedt introduced Jim to aerodynamics too. This picture of Jim with John Surtees was taken by the car at Riverside by someone working for Roller Vollstedt, who actually, the team owner, is still now in his late 90s, still with us. And John was overheard by one of the mechanics asking Jim about that crude rear wing on the car. Jim apparently said, "I'm not happy with it," he said to John. "Doesn't seem to add anything, so we're taking it off." In reality, of course, Jim loved that wing, but didn't want to give away the game. A couple of weeks later, indeed, in Levin in New Zealand, he asked Alan McCall, one of the Team Lotus mechanics, to build a very similar spoiler on the Tasman Lotus 49 that Jim was racing at that point. Alan made it overnight out of a helicopter blade, but when Colin Chapman, who was in England, heard about it on a long-distance telephone call, he immediately told Clark and McCall to take it off the Lotus 49. Why? Anyway, we don't have an answer to that question. The Vollstedt also has a little beard at the front, deflectors at the front, but that wasn't completely innovative because the Lotus 49 actually ran those on the high-speed circuits of '67. So congratulations to Mike McKinney. Beautiful car, that Vollstedt-Ford. I love seeing cars in their absolute original condition.